Hey y'all, it's Adam Johnson of the Johnson firm with my brother Jonathan Johnson, who, in my humble opinion, is the best uh, divorce lawyer in the state of Louisiana, custody lawyer, whatever you call it. I think we generally refer to it as family law. So
Humble opinion.
that's right, very humble opinion. Today we're going to go over the different types of divorces.
Right.
So tell me, in general, what are the different types of divorces in Louisiana?
Okay, so people come see us all the time, going through a rough patch in their marriage. They're contemplating their future, and they want to know about the divorce process. First thing I'm going to tell them is that there are two types of divorce. There's fault-based, and there is no fault-based. Under Louisiana law, no fault divorce, you don't have to state any grounds or any reasons. You just have to state, I intend to be separated from this person for a requisite period of time that's established in the law, and I can get the divorce. The other side can't object, can't stop it. If you have minor children of the marriage, it's 6 months of separation, 180 days.
I was going to ask about that.
And if you have if you have minor children, it's 1 year, 365. If you don't have minor children, it is 6 months, 180 days.
Now, I know that we've dealt with this before, not me, but you and your staff. If someone comes in, hey, I caught him cheating.
Mhm.
He admitted to it. I've got it on video, whatever. I want to go after him.
Right.
And we have to explain, you may not want to do that. Can you talk about that kind of situation?
Sure, this happens all the time. Someone has grounds for an at-fault divorce. Well, what an at-fault divorce does is it terminates the marriage immediately. And I say immediately in family court terms, which means maybe a month or two.
Yeah, and I don't know much about family law, but I know what family, relative means in that situation.
Absolutely. Everybody understands the delays that are associated with family court. So the no fault, you've got that 6 months or a year's worth of waiting period, and the divorce is pending that entire time. In the at fault, adultery being one, you can get that divorce immediately. So maybe two months, something like that. So if a spouse comes in, let's say a wife comes in that stays home with the children. Okay. She says, hey, I caught my husband cheating. He's admitted to it. I've got absolute evidence.
Okay.
All right. So I want to file a divorce based on that adultery.
Okay.
I'm going to tell her not to do that. And the reason being is because one thing that she would be giving up is her claim for interim periodic spousal support.
Yeah, right. You want to get that for as long as you can.
Right. So spousal support goes while the divorce is pending and up to 6 months pass. So if I terminate the marriage quicker based on the husband's fault, I'm getting the divorce quicker, but I'm also letting him off the hook.
Yeah, it's actually benefiting him.
That's right.
Okay.
It's a financial windfall to him, and it's money out of her pocket.
You have to be smart. You got to pick your battles.
You just have to know the rules, how they apply, and how they best suit the client.
My thing is, though, is that one thing we deal with a lot of times, no matter the area of the practice of law, all right? But clients come in, and we deal with lawyers who have had these people who've told them what they want to hear, right? This kind of sounds like one of those difficult topics that you've got to explain on the front end, and you may say, hey, we're not going to go after them for this specific thing, but we're still going to get you the best thing possible under the circumstances, right?
Yeah, people get advice on these things from all sorts of sources that aren't credible.
Yeah.
What we try to do in our meetings with the clients is to explain all of the rules, all of the law to them, and explain why the advice that we're giving them is in their best interest. And I very, very rarely have any pushback on that whatsoever, because they understand, hey, look, I'm not the one that cheated. He shouldn't get off the hook paying me this interim spousal support just because I want to exercise this ability to say, hey, I caught you, and
don't play into his hands.
Yeah,
don't play into his hands or her hands, whatever it is.
Correct. And one thing that we can do, and we do this all the time, is we plead it alternatively. So if you want to put the adultery in there,
right.
I put, hey, he cheated with so-and-so, and we have grounds for adultery. However, we are filing under Article 102, which is the no-fault basis, and we're going to be separated. He then can't come in and default himself, even though I literally had someone try that one time, tried to sue this.
You know what? I did cheat.
Yeah.
I want this quicker.
I want it quicker because he was paying a sizable amount of
Right.
spousal support. So that's the why you would file one or the other if you have grounds for both.
Other than a no-fault divorce, other than an at-fault situation, is there any way to speed up that 6-month timeline with respect to minor children?
No, and 1 year for minor children.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. There's not. Parties sometimes come in and say, well, we both agree that we've been separated for some period of time.
Okay.
What I would always tell anybody is, look, you're signing an affidavit, okay? Which is under penalty of perjury, and you're putting it before the court. And if you tell me then there's no way we're putting that in there because we don't put anything before the court
Absolutely.
that we know is untrue.
I love my clients to heck and back, but you ain't worth my law license.
Yeah, we're not lying for you.
Yeah.
So, there's really no way around that. Another question I get asked all the time is, well, look, we're not staying in the same room. I moved to this room and she's in this room.
Can you be separated inside the same house?
And you can't. The law's really clear on that.
What about this? Because I know this comes up because relationships are tough,
Mhm.
right? They leave, they're separated,
Mhm.
they get back together, or things happen.
Mhm.
What constitutes reconciliation? What constitutes you know what I mean? At what point do you restart the clock?
So this is one of those areas in the law that's just kind of gray.
Okay.
Sex alone is not reconciliation. The law basically understands that two people that have been in an intimate relationship for a long period of time may need.
Yeah, let's just stay away from that topic. I think you'll understand.
May come back after they've separated. So the other side's not going to be able to say, well, no, we were intimate one time, but between that and that interrupted.
They can't put that in an affidavit and restart the clock.
What you have to do is you have to resume residing together as a married couple and hold yourself out publicly as a married couple. Okay. So that's the general standard of the law. The specifics on that can that's
that's good lawyering and good advice are key things.
What's really important is that the clients understand what they can and can't do if they want to maintain their divorce action. Now, I say this all the time. I'm not a divorce advocate. I'm an advocate for divorced people. Okay,
right.
People that are going through a divorce, that's who we advocate for. So when my clients call me and say, hey, we got back together, that is a great day at our office.
Yeah,
we love those calls.
Right.
But it does kill your divorce action. And if something happens and you break up again, you're going to have to start the process over.
Okay.
So
now I got to go to the question because I get these calls and of course I tell everybody, hey, call our family law department. But one of the things that comes up, I feel like is, hey, look, I've got some sort of season of our life coming up and we feel like there's going to be a lot of expenses, right, during the season. Is there any benefit prior to some season of life? I'm talking about like Christmas or something like that. I'm not talking about dropping the hammer, December 25th, but where you're going to rack up maybe some expending, or maybe you're tied to a spender who you're afraid is going to kind of, do Christmas again in a nutty way where they just spend money y'all don't have. Is there any harm? I mean, I would think it's probably a pretty good idea that if you're thinking about a divorce, that you come in as soon as possible and talk to somebody because you want to avoid some of those pitfalls that I've seen people make with respect to credit card debt, for instance.
Sure. People make their worst mistakes in a divorce case the year before they file.
Yeah.
That's consistent. You're trying all sorts of things. Hey, let's have a baby. Let's go on trips. Let's buy expensive gifts because we're trying to fix a problem, right? Yeah. And we're trying to fix it with the way that we know how to fix things. And normally it doesn't help.
Right.
So what I would suggest is at the first thought, not at the first sign of trouble, because everybody's relationships are different, but the first thought where you're seriously contemplating that, hey, I may want out of this. Then you sit down and you meet with one of our professionals that know all the rules and can give you all of the advice. You don't have to hire us. You don't have to
get divorced.
You don't have to file a divorce.
Right.
But learn everything that you need to know,
so you just avoid those.
And ask those questions. So if somebody was telling me, if they're in that meeting and they're like, hey, and she really wants us to buy a new house and I'm going to have to, go into a lot more debt and well, that may be a decision that we would put on hold until we were certain that these issues were going to, there's unlimited situations that we could be talking about there, and they're all completely viable and worth investigating before you act ignorant.
Yeah, and only the person themselves knows when that point is. But what you're saying is hey, look, you can avoid some pretty routine mistakes if you just reach out to us whenever you think it's a possibility you may be getting a divorce in the future.
That's just if it's on the table, if it's something that's in your mind, then there's no harm in meeting with an attorney.
And it's confidential. They don't know you meet with us or anything like that, right?
100% confidential. I would say most people, a lot of people have this Life 360 app and things like that. So, those are things that you think about when you schedule an appointment to go meet with an attorney. Maybe turn your app off or leave your phone at home.
Yeah, right. All right. Now, I've got another question. All right. So, and I've seen you come back with sort of what's great stories for our clients, but horror stories in terms of, I'm not going to say malpractice, but mistakes that the attorney on the other side and the parties on the other side do not know they've made with respect to certain calculations and things like that. Would you tell our viewers a little bit about your background?
Yeah.
In terms of the accounting background, working for the CPA, and sort of go through maybe a couple of those stories, because I feel like that's something people really need to hear.
Sure. And this really kind of gets into some of those incidental errors like the spousal support we were talking about earlier. But lawyers are infamously terrible at math.
Yeah, me. I am terrible at math.
And
I can take 33% out of anything. Just kidding. It's a terrible lawyer joke. Go ahead.
So my background is I graduated in accounting, worked for a CPA while I was in college doing tax returns and bookkeeping and a ton of other awesome, really cool stuff.
Yeah, right.
During college. So that's where I come from this stuff at. I like math. I'm very familiar and very involved with the child support formula, getting into someone's tax returns and understanding what their income is and being able to present their information in the best way possible. And on community property cases,
and that gives
incredible.
us a tremendous advantage over the other side, right?
There are so many times in these cases where the other side is just trusting our math because they can't do the math.
Yeah, right.
And
yeah,
so it is, it's a tremendous advantage. So yeah, I mean, getting with the right attorney, someone that understands the rules, understands how to, implement the rules is invaluable. So, kind of wrapping up on this topic, divorce. We talked about no fault based. It's adultery, like we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been the victim of domestic abuse, if there's an active protective order in place, or if your spouse is sentenced to the penitentiary.
Okay.
Those are your grounds for getting an immediate divorce. If you don't have those grounds, then we're talking about a no fault situation. The last question that I'll kind of address here, I get asked this almost every consult. Does it matter who files first?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. No one's going to say, well, that must be the reason that they're at fault for this.
Right.
Or, it's not. Who files first makes no difference whatsoever. So the key thing to remember here is if you're going through this, you need to meet with an attorney sooner rather than later so that you don't, step in some of those just potholes that people step in that last year and put themselves way behind the 8 ball.
Okay. So that's it for this topic. We'll have a bunch of other topics. Like and subscribe, as they say. And I appreciate you answering those questions for us.
Appreciate it.